All right, Don. Well, thank you for coming on to the Cam Monkey podcast show. Love to have you on. It was great to meet you a couple weeks ago in Miami at the IMN event, and it's always interesting to meet other people in our industry that are doing things to help the industry be better, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a service, whether it's advocacy, whether it's building a sustainable business and giving a good brand to whatever it may be. It's always good to meet those individuals that are helping and to create the like-mindedness. So again, I wanted to have you on to show to tell our audience who you are, what you do, how you're helping our industry, and any other tidbits maybe that come out from this would be great for them as well. But please introduce yourself and take it away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And yes, it was an absolute pleasure getting to meet you. You always see people online through LinkedIn or you're in a webinar or something, but to actually put a face to a name in a real life situation is always great because you're like, oh, yes, okay, I know who you are. So thank you for that intro. My name is Dawn Yeskulsky, and I am the CEO and founder of two companies, one being the PMS Pros, and the other is Yes to VR Advisors. And do you want me to just go into what we do?
Yes, I would love the on both aspects. And then again, like another question would be like, why did you even get into this space? So, but yes, please,
Oh
like,
gosh.
if you have two companies, so obviously you're seeing a niche or you're seeing a hole that was not being attained, and then this is why you came in. So please go on both of those.
Absolutely. I've been in the vacation rental technology space for 29 years. Can't believe that. So I started off in the PMS world. So back in the late 90s, right before Y2K, and everybody was freaking out about software. And I was with one of the founding PMS companies for 14 years. I then had the opportunity to work in the industry, but from a little bit different of a perspective. And that was with a payment processing company called Ascent Processing, or Ascent Payment Solutions, now they're called. And I helped build Ascent, and I was there 10 years. After my stint in payment processing, I came back to the PMS world. I worked for Track for 2 years, helping lead their global sales efforts. And then I worked for Inhabit, which is the owner of multiple PMS brands, for another 2 years. And then finally, I rounded it all out with consulting for Guesty. So within a 5-year span, I really had the kind of behind the curtain view of all of these leading technology companies as far as PMS is concerned. I was noticing that there were a lot of similarities between them and the challenges that they had and what they were trying to accomplish for the industry and for their clients. After I decided to do that, I said, there's something out there that I can use this knowledge. And I had a lot of previous customers coming to me and saying, hey, Dawn, who do we choose? And what's good about this? And what's good about this one? And I found out quickly that there was a need from property managers to help decipher through the noise. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but there were 14 different PMS brands represented. I think it was at Spring Forum this year in the Software Showdown. And when I saw them all up on stage, I was like, wow, there's 14 different companies up here. How did we get so big? But that comes with a lot of noise for property managers because every PMS wants you to see their PMS as the answer to all of your problems. So that they're going to try to sell you on that. And that's their job. I mean, that's what they do. But where PMS Pros gets involved and where I get involved is kind of working alongside the property manager and saying, okay, what do you really need? And let's look at your business from an objective standpoint and find out where your strengths, where your weaknesses are. And then we will help try to align you with a couple companies that we think could really solve those problems. So essentially we put almost like, I call it like bubble wrap around a property manager when they're going through this process. And then we help them kind of decipher through the noise and come down to a decision making as what they feel is the best solution for them. So it's been quite a ride, and I'm absolutely loving it. And being able to help property managers directly is something I've never been able to do because I was always behind a company. So it's so much more fulfilling. I shouldn't say that. Can we strike that out?
Yeah.
Very fulfilling to be able to actually work one-on-one with property managers in this capacity. And then PMS Pros, I also have a team of dedicated professionals that are specialists in certain software. So if you already have a PMS or other software and you say, hey, listen, we've had this for 5 years. We don't know if we're using all the bells and whistles. Is there anything new? Nobody from my original training that we got is still with the company. So everybody has gotten passed down training. So what we're able to do is actually get a person that's a pro in that particular software, whether it be Track, Guesty, Streamline, Barefoot, you name it. And we can actually put them in a position to either look at your software, see if it can be streamlined, if there's any bells and whistles or new features you're not adding? Is there redundancy in your tech stack? So we can go in and provide that completely objective view, give additional training, and help you optimize your existing PMS. And that is really what we've been doing. And the response has been great because we don't take any. Everybody thinks that there's something in it for them. Let me just put it that way. One of the decisions that I made early on is that we would not accept any referral fees or commissions from any of the technology providers. And that was intentional. So nobody thinks, okay, we're recommending this company because there's something in it for us. So I love to be able to tell property managers, listen, there isn't anything. The only thing that's in it for us is us helping you find your tech.
No, and that's perfect. I mean, and coming from your position of being in the PMS in 1999, I'm sure that like maybe a handful of companies then, and maybe a couple, I don't know. But you're right now. You said 14 at the very that game they're doing, but I'm sure there's way more than 14 even now. I feel like everyone's a PMS. You know, it's crazy. So you're right. In this world of some of these individuals get into the Airbnb space or they see Airbnb and then they go in it backwards and they just kind of stumble on the first PMS. You're really to look at their business as a whole and say, look, I see you're trying to do these things. This would be fit and best for you. And then not have any incentives on the back end. You are actually giving them like a really good approach on based off what they actually need. And that is huge. You're right. Because some would probably think that if you're partnering with the company and you're getting a kickback, then you're probably just going to push that company. But now it doesn't feel like it's an obligation. So it's really just going off best one. When you're meeting with these people, like, who do you find that usually comes to you to have questions about their PMS? These ones that already have a business that are with like 10, 15 properties, or those that are just getting started, or those that are scaling and realizing what they have, or is it a combination of all?
It's all of the above.
Yeah.
So my smallest client has 3 properties, and my largest client from this past year has a couple thousand properties. So the complexity in helping each one of them is very different. You know, the woman with 3 properties, her properties were very specific. So we needed to find software that fit what she was looking for. And then we've got on the opposite end, this company that has thousands and thousands of properties that have traditionally operated more like a resort environment, and they are transitioning their whole entire business model to be from resort hotel style operations to key level vacation rental operations and advertising. So that has been almost a 9-month project in vetting all the software out there, doing deep dives into how their operations are going to change. And then now we're in the onboarding process, and then we're going to be writing the SOPs for that new business operations that they're going to be running. Complexity is all across the board, and I love the small starting out companies because we can really help shape what they want and where they start, and then coming in to the larger projects that it's like a bowl of spaghetti when you look at their tech stack, and then you have to kind of figure it out and align it all. So it's the full gamut.
When you're I'm sure like my perspective on PMS is that they probably all do the same thing, but from your perspective, probably no, they're probably all different. So like are you doing your research on these PMSs on your own and then just making sure like you know the connections, the integrations, all that, and then doing your own little due diligence that when you do meet these companies, you ask the right qualifying questions to be able to match up the right way, or really are all PMSs the same? You're just kind of really finding the right partner.
You know, PMSs at the core are meant for a few things. They're meant to handle reservations, handle the related accounting that goes with it, pay out the owners, handle the housekeeping, maintenance, work orders. I mean, if you boil it down, that's really the key components to it. Now, everything that wraps around it now with revenue management and distribution, there is so much more that's now considered a core part of a PMS tech stack. So once you get outside of those core functions, then that's when you see the diversification. It's one PMS might be really, really strong in everything related to accounting. Another one might be stronger with their API connections to the distribution channels. So, and one might be more, more geared for operators with less than 10 properties. So you have to getting to know the ins and outs of all of these different companies and what their strengths and weaknesses are has been like a full-time job. And I thought going into this side of the business, I know a lot about these companies. I've been in this industry for, 20 something years. I was wrong. There was so much I didn't know until I actually jumped in and started getting down to the granular level with these PMS companies that I said, wow, I didn't know they did that. Or why don't they do that? I'm surprised they don't have that. So it's been a learning exercise for myself as well. And it's just great because I'm now able to take all of that and fast track it for the PMS company.
If someone's coming to you and they are on the fence with their PMS company and looking for a new one, and maybe they're scared, or the thought of, I don't know how long this is going to take. Like, what roughly, when you're dealing with the transition from one to the other, is their business stopping? I mean, what's the pain points that you hear that they're afraid of, that after they go through it, they're like, oh, I thought it was gonna be scary, but it really wasn't. Is it like a seamless like transition? Is there a pause in their business per se, or is it just really like kind of turning one on and off at the same time and just go?
No, it definitely, in most cases, it's not turning one off and turning one on. Depending on the size of the property manager, time of the year that you're actually trying to do the conversion, everybody wants to do it in their down season, but that's not always possible because everybody would be trying to do their software conversions at the same time, mainly. However, so the software companies generally are very good about plotting out what an onboarding looks like. I would say on average, it typically takes 2 to 3 months. And during that time, the property manager will really, it's crucial that you have a team in-house, or you have a team, hire a team that can project manage that on your side as the property manager, because there's going to be a lot of homework. And if you don't keep track on that homework, you're going to fall behind in the onboarding process. So I would say plan on 2 to 3 months, plan on running dual. That means putting reservations and everything accounting related in both systems, doing end of month out of two systems, running and comparing owner statements. There's a reason why a lot of people just avoid a software migration, because it really is, it's a strain on the business. So we've been able to successfully help property managers by coming in and being that internal project manager for them and keeping them on track with things.
Do you find sometimes, or have you ever had maybe someone reach out to you about leaving a PMS, but then once you sat with them and found out their pain points, maybe they had the right PMS, they just didn't know how to use it?
Absolutely.
So you're not just really consulting to get off, you're really just consulting and helping to really utilize what they have. And if what they have is not the best one, you're the person to say, hey, I know what you're trying to do, and this is where you might be better fit over here. It might be 2, 3 months of a process, but in the long run, you'll see it. Is that kind of what you're doing? A whole holistic look at it?
Absolutely. Before we actually go down the path of finding them a new PMS, we thoroughly vet what they have and what their perceived pain points are. And we want to make sure that if their software is able to do it, or they just don't have it configured the right way, or maybe they don't need a whole rip and replace of their PMS. Maybe it's just another third party that we can bring in to bridge that gap. That's going to make things a lot easier instead of, 3 months and a whole learning curve of trying to find a new PMS. So we absolutely we vet that whole, or we uncover everything we can before resulting to going to a new PMS.
And then, so how did this venture turn into your other venture? How did you say, no, this is not enough for me, I got to get this other business going too? Or in your mind, do they coincide with each other and they're helping out?
They really do coincide. So I originally had yes to VR advisors, and that was just me, myself, and what I would advise companies on. And those are generally, the large scale type of PMS conversions, RFPs, needs analysis, those types of things. When I did not have the knowledge that was specific enough for property managers I was talking to, that started me looking outside to find pros that were, streamline accounting pros, guesty distribution revenue managers. So those people that had that very specific expertise that can come in on short-term projects and help a property manager with their PMS. And that kind of what spawned PMS Pros. And now I've got about 9 different individuals within the organization that have a wide variety of specialties that they have with certain PMSs, and we can plug them in as needed. So PMS
That's
Pros kind of grew off of what I was trying to do.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's actually awesome because you do need someone that's kind of already went down the hallway, said, hey, skip these 3 doors, go to this one right here, save you the time, the energy, and eventually, I mean, saving you money too. So you're not, doing the wrong thing. So that's huge. And that makes sense how one spawned the other and then kind of helped coincide. When you are like, what's the biggest like takeaway that you've learned from doing this? Like when were people like not wanting to switch because they just didn't know how to do it, or are you seeing that people are just they got married to the first company and they're just trying to make it work? Like why does someone end up leaving a PMS? Like from your perspective now, like because some people must love that same PMS, and so it must be just each business is different. What have you seen the reason why someone would leave a PMS, or maybe it's time for them to leave a PMS?
The most common that we see is that a property manager outgrows their PMS. So obviously you've got, these very large complex systems like Streamline and Guesty and Track that they're so robust that that's really meant for a certain point of evolution in their business. If I'm a property manager, I have 1, 2, 3 properties, it's probably not cost effective or even smart for you to go into a system like that. So starting off with a smaller, less complex and more affordable PMS that can get you up to a certain level before you outgrow it, that's probably the route that most people go. And then they start feeling those pain points that's like, I wish I did this. I wish it did this. So that's when we normally see that next jump into a more complex system. Then you've got, property managers that just are very specific about what they want. They want certain, it has to be this form of trust accounting, it has to have these reports. I have to be able to extract this data myself. So they know what they want. These are generally the companies that have been in business quite some time. And those are helpful because then exactly, okay, we're not going to look anywhere until a PMS first says, yes, we can do that. If it's not, yes, we can do that, we move on. So that's another reason is when there's very specific things that a property manager needs and their PMS cannot do it and has no, it's not on a roadmap. It's just not important to them.
And I know that you had just mentioned that you're giving the example of one of these robust property management softwares that maybe wouldn't be ideal for someone new. When you were in the PMS world and you were selling the service, when you met any of these property managers that came to you and they were maybe not ready for a robust system, would you sell them out of it? Like, do you find PMSs are maybe not doing I'm not saying that PMS is just taking on anyone, but are they taking on anyone, even though maybe they know that that is not the right one? Because sometimes I hear from my perspective, PMSs, they're like, we only work with 10 to 50 properties, or we work for. So I have heard some of these that really do find their niche. And based off what you said, maybe they did find someone that had 1 to 8 properties and it fit that PMS, but maybe they grew to 16. But do you find that maybe sometimes when you go through this, you're like, oh my gosh, and maybe you don't say it out loud, but you're like, they should never have sold you this. Do you see that often, or is that just more maybe just
We do see it.
yeah?
And sometimes what we see is a company or a property manager that was with another company, a larger company, and that's the PMS
Mm,
that they use there. So they already know it, they're already comfortable with it.
that
Now
makes
maybe they're
sense.
starting off their own property management company and they only have 4 or 5 units, but they know that software, that's what they want to use, and they know that they can grow into it. That's, we see that quite often with the acquisitions that are going on. But a lot of the PMS companies, especially the ones that I talk to, their pricing is what kind of prevents the smaller PM companies from using them. A few of them have a minimum number of units that you have to pay for every month. So I believe it's like 50. So if you want to pay for 50, by all means, they'll go ahead and sell you the software. But if you have 3 properties, are you really going to pay for 50? Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. And that actually is very, that makes sense. That if I was at a company that this is what we use, this is what I was familiar with, I probably would just want to jump right back into that instead of learning something else. But maybe not thinking that it's going to be hindering you in the long run because you're not utilizing it the most. I mean, Don, this has been phenomenal information. I found this very valuable, and I'm not even a property manager, so I know that my audience is going to love hearing this information because maybe they're on the fence about it and they just don't know what the next steps are. So how does someone find you or reach out to you, or where can they get some more information if they hear this and they said, wow, I'm actually thinking about switching in our down season? Where would they find you?
So there are 2 websites, but I would have them go to www.thepmspros.com, and that's going to have a contact us form. It'll have my direct phone number, and it will link to my email address, and we would love to, just have a conversation. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm ready to do this. Just have a conversation about, hey, listen, this is where we're at. I'm thinking that I might want to look, and it's not just limited to PMS. It might be I need a new revenue management tool, or I've never used a revenue management tool, or I'm thinking about breaking out my housekeeping and maintenance outside of my PMS. Do I need a guest app? So we call it's the PMS Pros, but in hindsight, maybe a different name would have been better because we really take a look at the whole holistic tech stack that a property manager needs. So maybe it's I don't know, Tech Stack Pros, but anyway, for now it's the PMS Pros, and that's where you can find us.
That's phenomenal. I think that is actually really great to end on that right there, because I feel like it's not just one specific thing. You are helping a specific thing, but also you're helping out the whole thing. Everything is connected. So maybe they do have the right PMS, like you said, but maybe they don't have the right connections and integrations that can make it even better, that they just don't even know exist. And that's where you would come in place and just kind of show them and make the world a little bit bigger. So Don, with that, thank you so much for your information and what you're providing to our audience. And it was great to meet you again in person a couple weeks ago, and I hope to see you at the next conference.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alex.
Don.
Bye.